video game companies are, responsible for making our favorite video games. But none of them are perfect. In fact, these 10 have all made decisions that have severely damaged their reputations. So, that's what we're counting down today. Hi guys, DPX here. Welcome to the top 10 reputation-damaging decisions video game companies have made. That's quite a long title. Maybe I'll change it in post or whatever. Now, the only rule here is that, well, one reputation-damaging decision per company will be on this list. Anyways, let's get started, but before we do that, you know what to do. Be sure to subscribe to the video, hit the bell, and leave a comment, or I'll ruin your reputation.
I wanted to give to you, the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10 in the Bible.
Good old Sega, once a head-to-head rival with Nintendo, now sort of just exists, A lot of people like to point at the Sega Saturn as something that contributed to Sega's downfall, and if you look at how specifically the Sega Saturn was launched, it's hard to argue. Pretty much, the Sega Saturn was meant to release on September 2nd, 1995, but they ended up announcing that at that year's E3, which took place months earlier, that the console was available right then and there. Many retailers were unaware that Sega was going to do this. Many developers for Sega Saturn games were working on games that were meant to be launched as launch titles for the Saturn, but weren't ready to release, thus really hampering the launch lineup. And many consumers who were saving up money for the Saturn for its release were not ready to make the purchase. This really doomed Sega from the console business, and everyone lost the trust in them. Xbox recently bought Bethesda, and that seems good for Bethesda, as sure, Doom Eternal was awesome, but before that, their last few games were not awesome, and it all started to go downhill once Fallout 76 launched in an embarrassing state. The beta was dropped, and many people were very disappointed and even considering canceling their pre-orders. Then when the game came out, it was still a huge mess. Everything in the game seemed unfinished. Many promised features weren't there, and the collector's edition not only came with a shitty nylon bag when they promised a nice canvas bag, but also came with a helmet that was able to gas you. And if you believe it, it gets worse, as we even get Fallout First, a subscription service. For a while, Fallout 76 just kept getting worse and worse and worse, but luckily, it seems that Bethesda has bounced back.
So I'm going to be giving this flavor 8.5 out of 10 scoops.
PlayStation are pretty cool. You might not agree with everything they've been doing recently, but I don't think they've done anything too bad recently. Let's look back at the PlayStation 3, and for a while in that generation, they were really messing up, but the biggest thing has to be the PSN hack. Now, to be fair, the PSN hack wasn't necessarily PlayStation's doing, but it was more so the handling of the situation and the lack of communication to the customers. Pretty much, someone jailbroke the PS3 and discovered that Sony's security was flawed and outdated. Because of this, many PSN users had their credit card information compromised. Again, this wasn't necessarily PlayStation's doing, but then you learn that they didn't do anything till after the fact. People weren't able to play online games and didn't know why. And then, after all was said and done, PlayStation announced that they've been hacked, but didn't communicate this until, again, after the damage had already been done. Sony lost a lot of consumer trust from this, it's fair to say.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
Xavient Games. What? you haven't heard of them? Well, they're not that big, but once I tell you about this, you won't forget. A few years ago, they came out with a decent game called The Culling, which was a battle royale game that even predates PUBG and Fortnite. Then made The Culling 2, which was unanimously bad. Alright, we'll just say, I don't want to dwell on that one for too much, but it's unanimously bad. Then, last year, they tried to bring back The Culling as The Culling Origins, but there's a catch. You spend $6 to get the game, okay, and you jump into a game. No problem, but if you lose and want to play again, either wait 24 hours or pay $1. So basically, this game is pay per play. Let me repeat, the only way you can play more than once a day is if you either win or spend money on a game that isn't even free. As scummy as companies like EA or Konami are, I don't think they'll go this far. They'll at least let you play the game. This isn't higher because Avian Games aren't really a household name, but this ruined any chances of them becoming one.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Hey look, this one is really rather recent, but God did the launch of Cyberpunk 2077 hurt. Now believe it or not, I actually really enjoyed Cyberpunk, as, I don't know, I didn't encounter too many bugs, but that doesn't change the fact that CD Projekt Red released this game in an absolutely unacceptable state for, I guess, everyone else but me. So we're gonna remove myself from the occasion. This isn't the only time a highly anticipated AAA game was released all buggy and glitchy, and I wouldn't even say it's the worst one when talking about the actual state of the game, but it's the worst launch of a game because of everything else, like the review process, the straight up unrealistic hype, and CD Projekt Red's prior history of being a rather consumer-friendly company and having a near spotless track record in that regard. Perhaps it was the pressure coupled with the pandemic and possible hardware limitations. The controversy with Cyberpunk is a huge mess that will take me forever to explain more of, but God did this hurt.
Chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Look, I love Nintendo. This channel has mostly been Nintendo, but they are not a perfect company. And nothing proves that more than basically all of 2020. I know I'm kind of cheating a bit, but Nintendo really seemed to piss off everyone last year. There was the Joy-Con drift issue, where they were getting sued and said that Joy-Con drift was not a real issue, despite the fact that it can make some games nearly unplayable. There was the Mario 35th anniversary, where Nintendo really half-assed stuff like the Mario 3D All-Stars and killed it just a few months later. And how can we forget all the stuff that went down between Nintendo, the Smash community, and then later on the Splatoon community, where they canceled the Big House for using Slippy to do a Melee tournament because there was a global pandemic, then killed the Splatoon NA Open because the players showed solidarity with the Smash community. Luckily, it seems that Nintendo have rather cleared up their act this year, but even then, I don't think there is any end in sight for their mistreatment of their communities, which kind of boils my blood more than most things on here. EA, they have enough shit for their own list of fails. Let me know if you want to see that down the line. That being said, there are a lot to choose from, but I think it has to be loot boxes and microtransactions. While not creating loot boxes and microtransactions, I think they help normalize them as when Star Wars Battlefront 2 released, the game was littered with loot boxes and microtransactions. They removed them from the game, and at the time it was like temporary, but I don't think they ever came back. And how the game was not only able to survive, but also got a lot better later on, surprises me. But then when they were getting sued, they denied that loot boxes and microtransactions were gambling, but rather surprise mechanics. Sounds an awful lot like gambling to me. Then, for the next few years, they kept pissing off more and more people, and it only seems like recently where they are starting to make up for the loot boxes and microtransactions that damage their reputation, which is good, but the fact that they basically need to tell you outright that there will be no microtransactions in whatever game they have coming up is quite telling. Just like EA, Konami has so much shit that they can get their own list of fuck-ups. And while any of them can make this list, I feel like their reputation just completely went downhill when they fired Hideo Kojima. Kojima made Konami. Okay, not literally, but I'll argue that Konami wouldn't be held in such a high regard, at least previously, not now, if it weren't for Kojima. Basically, Konami and Kojima butted heads a lot during the development of Metal Gear Solid 5. What is even more frustrating for the fans and Kojima himself is that he was denied from appearing at the 2015 Game Awards, of which his game won an award for. And if that's not all, they cancelled Silent Hills because of Kojima. Say what you want about the pachinko machines, Metal Gear Survive, or removing PT. Hell, some of those might even be worse than this. But their reputation really started to sink once they cut ties with Hideo Kojima, and the more scummy they are, the harder I think it'll be for them to really rebuild their reputation.
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
You want to talk about game companies that just basically were unable to come back from a damaged reputation? You have to bring up Atari and the video game crash of 1983. Now, this wasn't really a single decision Atari made, nor is it really a decision at all, but rather the outcome of a series of decisions Atari made in a very short span of time. In the early 80s, Atari basically ran the video game industry with an iron fist, and with little to no competition. But in 1983, Atari started to oversaturate the video game market with just pure shit. The big two examples of this were not exclusive to, but are Pac-Man, which Atari had a crazy amount of confidence in producing more copies of the game than there were systems sold at the time, and E.T., which was programmed in under 6 weeks. I used to take a hiatus from YouTube for 6 weeks. That game would have started development and ended development probably for the entire duration of me being gone. Think about that. Both of these games were widely considered some of the worst games of all time, and as a result, the video game industry crashed. Atari, while somehow not completely dying, still shut down a division of theirs and opened up a new one, but it was never the same for them ever again.
I'm a Luigi, number 1.
Look, I don't want to dwell on this one for too much, as it is a subject that is very sensitive and a story that is still unfolding. I was going to make an in-depth detective about this, but all the sexual misconduct allegations that came to light at Blizzard and their subsequent handling of the situation, or lack thereof rather, does not deserve a fun, highly edited video all about it. Fuck Activision Blizzard and anyone there who let this happen. This shit really made me fucking sick. And moving forward, if you continue to support this company, you are in some extent supporting this type of toxic behavior. We all need to vote with our wallets, and if it gets bad enough for them to handle, they might just make some internal changes. Do not pay them a penny until they start doing so. So that was this list. Do you guys agree with me? I think we can agree that maybe the top two, you can probably switch them around, but the top two are definitely like, they need to be in the top two, if you know what I mean. But what do you guys think? I know this is a very specific topic. Again, I'll try to make the title shorter. But yeah, be sure to come subscribe or I'll damage your reputation. Bye guys!